hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good.
Great that it worked. Perfect.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry for this. It suddenly always said like no internet connection, and although I could write, but I couldn't access the Instagram live, so for the delay.
No, that's all right. Maybe it was a Sunday message.
Exactly. I don't want to work.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. Today we have independent collectors, Chief Curator Georgie Pope, and it's a pleasure that you're here. We did it very spontaneously 2-3 days ago, which was pretty great. Yes, independent collectors. Maybe you could tell as well a little bit first what it is. You as a chief curator, what is independent collectors, let's say, curating and exhibiting, and something a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So independent collectors, we are a global guide to contemporary collecting. Mm-hmm. So our overarching value with the project is to give public access to privately owned art. Mm-hmm. So we have, I would say, a couple of different formats that achieve that overarching goal. Mm-hmm. We have our own platform,
yes,
independent-collectors.com, mm-hmm. and that presents private collections from all over the world. Mm-hmm. We have just under 300 online exhibitions currently. Wow. And just under 200 interviews. I just checked the stats before. I know you like statistics, Oliver.
Everyone likes it. So checking how much interaction is going on. Yes.
Yeah. So we have it's not that we represent collections, I would say, but we share the activities of private collectors.
Yes.
So that can be anything from, like yourself, we did that online exhibition last year where we presented artworks in your collection. You as a collector don't have a publicly accessible space, but you would still like to, in a way, activate your collection by giving it a public platform.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's exactly what we do at independent collectors. Of course, there's a lot of collectors that don't have a publicly accessible space. So we also, of course, work with a lot of private institutions, you would say. Mm-hmm. And those are places that you can physically visit.
Yeah. And
we even have a sort of specialized project in partnership with BMW. Mm-hmm. Since 2010, we've had that partnership, and we produced the BMW Art Guide by Independent Collectors.
Yes.
And currently in its 5th edition, and presenting 270 publicly accessible private collections from all over the world.
Great. For the BMW Guide, I want to talk later a little bit more. But how do you get the connections and to the collectors? Are you, let's say, contacting them? Are they contacting you? How do you, let's say, find what might be interesting to show? What is, let's say, not yet there to show? Is there any criteria, or how do you get in contact with them?
So by now, a lot of collections reach out to us.
Yes.
Of course, we do constant research as well. So it's a mixture of that. Mm-hmm. Now that because we've been running for nearly 12 years.
Wow.
The name Independent Collectors is very well known within the art world, and also the BMW Art Guide. So we get a lot of requests. In terms of criteria, so first of all, there's the focus on contemporary art. Mm-hmm. We also approach collections with a certain relevance. Our value is quality over quantity.
Great.
So you cannot find every private collection existing on our platform, it doesn't make sense for us to try to get everything on there. We really want to take this curated approach. So we have a lot of conversations with collectors, and that's something that I've actually really loved during this pandemic, because I feel like I've had more phone conversations with collectors than ever before. It's been really stimulating, and I've really enjoyed this kind of new opportunity for conversations. The other criteria is representing an international approach. Of course, based in Berlin, we have a lot of German collections, and there's, I guess you will find a lot of online exhibitions from within Germany, but we really do, especially maybe, I don't know, I come from Australia, I'm not from Germany, so of course I also really want to.
You get shocked by German?
No, not shocked. I can't help my own patriotism sometimes in wanting to put Australia more on the map, where not represented in the international art world.
Exactly.
I really do try to make a push to represent an international overview of collections. And for example, we recently joined a collection in Mumbai. Saloni Doshi, hello if you're going to see this. But it was the very first time that Saloni has ever given a public forum to her collection, and it's a fantastic collection, and also very relevant, because that is reflecting a young market from India. So the great thing about our platform is that you can visit these private collections wherever you are in the world and get an insight into the art world in that location.
And what do you see, like, when you're seeing Australian collections or international collections in comparison to, let's say, German Berlin collections? Is there any difference, or in terms of what let's say not define, but what the Germans are collecting, especially now since you have a lot of access to these collections because they're around, in comparison to the international collections?
I would say in general, collections are really making an effort to collect what is happening now. Like it's a bit outdated to not have a big engagement in collecting emerging artists or artists, living artists. So of course that by default results in collections having a local approach, but also out of need to support local artists. Berlin is, I think, a pretty special case because it's such an international city. So you have so many artists from all over the world living here. So I've also seen actually this, when you ask about Australia, there's definitely a rise in attention on Indigenous art and Indigenous art, Aboriginal art. But in general, there's not so many well-known collections in Australia as
Yes. Because for me, like the German collectors, they always, let's say, they have a certain average age. They collect, let's say, German artists, very cold, let's say, more kind of cold, simple, established, and not so much onto, let's say, the risky emerging market. Can you agree on this? This is how I sometimes have a take on, from your experience.
Yes and no. It really depends. Of course, the big famous names might give that impression. But it's pretty diverse, but definitely swaying more to the German market.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And how is like independent collectors now? Okay, since it's already online and it's a kind of a digital brand, how does it does now the pandemic scene scenario like affecting you or changing you? What is your strategy for the future?
So I like this question because I mean we've been around since 2008 as an online platform. So nothing has changed for us in terms of having a digital presence. We know that like the back of our hand. So we were, I mean, in terms of how we adapted, we didn't have to suddenly put something online, but we've been trying to respond to the pandemic through what we're showing, the content that we're showing. And for example, we started a Vimeo screening as a crisis art in times of crisis. And we've been streaming video works from our collections.
Cool.
And that is an intervention that will only be activated during the crisis. And we've also been curating the online exhibitions to have a response to our pandemic. Or we joined newly the Peachman Foundation in Tehran, a really fantastic private collection, and had just finished renovations, and then the crisis happened and they had to close their doors. So we were able to do an online exhibition, and that was I mean, especially given the situation in Tehran anyway, with culture. So we've really tried to take an engagement in response to the pandemic. Like it didn't seem relevant to just present works from collections. We wanted to make an engagement in terms of the content.
And for example, like you and I always, let's say doing interviews, showing the collections in pictures. Is there anything kind of idea you want to do it as well, like kind of the online platforms which are like currently up for the galleries and for the art fairs? Do you have like something in mind maybe to change how you present the collections?
At this stage, no. We have been contacted numerous times by tech startups that would like to work with us, produce virtual experiences. But to be honest, I don't think it's been executed well. And rather than creating a virtual experience, I think it's more, I mean, at the moment there is, I know, I kind of feel like it's for sure this like digital art tsunami, and it's really overwhelming. But what has stuck out to me are artists that are dealing with digital technologies anyway, rather than trying to do something in a new way. I've found it really interesting to turn to digital art or URLs, websites that are artwork URLs.
Okay. And you already mentioned it. You are in a cooperation with BMW, BMW Art Guide. How this cooperation came up, since BMW is a car brand? How is the relation for the BMW and independent collectors in terms of art, and as well what can people expect if they see the BMW art guide?
So the partnership came about. IC's founder, Christian Kasper Schwarm, he was he had a communications agency, and the agency was doing work for BMW anyway, and developed a good relationship. So I guess the partnership developed through that. What was the
second question was how since BMW is a car manufacturer, how are they related to art and as well like then?
Sorry.
Yes.
They have a really huge cultural engagement. They do a lot of projects like the BMW Art Cars. They have the BMW Tate Live.
Yeah.
So I think they really do take this authentic cultural engagement.
Yes.
And in terms of our partnership, it's fantastic because we have a lot of creative freedom. I mean,
great. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, we really are able to approach things how we like. It's in our name as, I mean, independent collectors. Our approach, it's in our name. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. It's especially, and how is it that kind of a print version? Is it an online version? How can people access this guide?
Yeah, sure. So we have a printed guidebook. I can actually show you because came to the library and wait, I have to turn this around.
The office looks so amazing. It's super nice. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's so nice.
To come into work on a Sunday, it's pretty all right when you're coming to this space. So I'll show you the guidebooks as well on the topic. So here they are.
Wow, great, nice.
And it's a really a hand-sized guidebook. We've heard it being coined as the Michelin Guide to Private Collections.
So cool.
It's not a coffee table book kind of thing. It's really a guide to publicly accessible private collections from all over the world. So you can, I mean, of course, take it traveling with you and find these hidden gems even in like the Brazilian jungle, for example, that you might not otherwise have known about. And we also have a website for the art guide, which is not a one-to-one sort of copy of the art guide, but we present interviews and collection portraits of our collections in the art guide, and we go into depth in terms of topics surrounding collecting. So we give interviews with fair directors and interviews with collectors. So you can, of course, access a lot of insight and the collections through the website. There's also an ebook version of the art guide. So
you said it's public collections. Do you as well think about maybe presenting like private collections in a book? Are the collectors open to share their collection in a print version, for example?
So it's an important, I mean, that is the big criteria point of the collections in the art guide. It's that they are all publicly accessible.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that you have to have this special huge space to house your collection.
Okay.
Like we have the Elliot Eyes collection in Sydney, and it's by appointment, and they provide an email address.
Okay.
So you can just send an email and write to the guys to organize a visit. So that is also a way to be publicly accessible.
Cool. Okay, great. We already here have a question. How can we order the guidebooks?
So you can get it through our website, Independent Collectors, or through Hattie Hans is the publisher. and or on Amazon, or the BMW Art Guide website.
Okay.
But I would say it's good to start with the Independent Collectors platform, and then there's links to everything from there.
Okay, great. Before I hand over to the community to ask more questions, I still would like to know, since you are located in Berlin, how is, like, let's say, Berlin, the importance in terms in the international art market, of course, in comparison to New York, London, and so on. How do you see Berlin, and how is it evolving?
Good question. I mean, I think Berlin, for sure. I mean, the private collection's kind of going public. I mean, the Boris collection opened in 2008, so I have also been working there as an art mediator for 5 years. And this was a pretty new thing when the Boris collection did that. And by now there's so many publicly accessible private collections. And of course, there's a lot of huge private institutions as well in the States, like the Broad. Unfortunately, the Marciano Arts Foundation has closed. But in terms of Berlin, I think there's so honestly it's like a mecca here for artists. Yes, because it's affordable. It still is affordable. I mean, rents are rising, of course, have been rising. And it's a big issue. We now have this rent freeze since the beginning of the year. So it naturally attracts, because of these conditions, it attracts a lot of artists. And Berlin is very collaborative rather than competitive, I would say. So also the support, like the BBK, who give a lot of artist studios and cover that financially for artists. Also the support that artists and freelancers have had from the pandemic. So I feel like it's attractive for artists to live here, and potentially therefore creates a very sort of authentic structure to create artworks. Of course, in other art capitals, New York, London, Paris, it's just so expensive to live. Of course. And so you really have to kind of hustle to get by. So, yeah, I really, I think there's an amazing authenticity, I think, to art production. I think, though, right now especially, I mean, this morning when I was, reflecting on our talk today, and also today we had, and yesterday, marches, peaceful protests in Berlin. And I kind of felt a bit strange, actually, talking about art, given the current political environment. But I think this is where, art worlds and buzzing cities and young artists, we should be really radical and poetic with art.
Because I heard that, for example, Julia Stoschek with her big, I'd say privately owned media collection will leave Berlin and rather go back to Düsseldorf. What is this kind of what is going on there?
Sure, that is nothing certain, and who knows? What will be the result? Rent prices really are increasing. I think it's more the access to the collection, or where it can be pushed and seen by a really large public. Julia Stoschek might stay in Berlin. I mean,
maybe could be.
at the end of the day, she can, afford to,
Of course.
afford
To
to
live
do.
everywhere.
Yeah. The Emmy Collectors Room will leave their location and focus their activities in Essen. So even though they're leaving Berlin, the collection will still be active. I don't think this should be a scare right now, and a reflection on the direction of future collections in Berlin.
Okay, great. The community can already type in the questions, and because now I have, let's say, my last question before this. What was the question? Sorry, I forgot now. And independent collectors, let's say, will they ever do as well like a combination of all the collections somehow and create, let's say, one curated show, or do you as well, let's say, thinking about exhibiting some stuff as you have as well, like some very nice offices and galleries, something like this? Do you think about this as well?
Yeah, I mean, that would be really, really cool.
Since you somehow can have access to all the great collections, then you can somehow sum it up and create an amazing show.
Collaborative online exhibition with our collections. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. I mean, this anyone is invited to. We can propose a topic, and our collections can respond. It's behind the scenes. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
It's exciting times for independent collectors. And we will be starting a production on the 6th edition of the BMW Art Guide. There's certainly a lot to do. But I love the idea of something collaborative, and we started these new interventions like the Vimeo series and our approach to our newsletter, and even with Instagram, labeling our images from the platform with a phrase that was relevant to our pandemic. We really try to do everything that we can to create interesting new content whilst giving public access to privately owned art, and it's about creating insight and knowledge around collecting. We want to break down that facade of the stereotype of collecting, or that it's something out of reach. Really use our platform as a resource to build up your own knowledge and see all the diverse ways that different people around the world collect and present art.
Yeah. This leads to the next question, which I already have here. Collezione Tauria Sano asking, is asking why collecting and why now? As well, you have access and know somehow the reason of most of the collections. Why are the people collecting, and what is the reason to collect still now in this pandemic scene?
Well, our reason to collect in this pandemic scene is, of course, to continue supporting artists. There are no collections without artists. I also think there's going to be a shift in the responsibility of private collections. Of course, there's going to be huge amounts of public funding pulled, and I think, there will be a shift towards private collections to take up that bundle.
Yes.
And I would like to see private collectors as public institutions have done so. I would like to see this responsibility to reflect our current topics and to continue to collect the works of artists in order to continue the artist's production. I mean, art really can be the most fantastic communication tool when it is activated and used with a certain social responsibility. So I think maybe it will not be enough just to simply present your artworks from your collection, but to really make a push to use that art. Art can totally be functional. So I think even though it probably can be a strange concept in terms of consumerism, to buy artworks and acquire stuff and things, it actually is it's still got value. And without artists, we've got a lack of culture.
Of course. Absolutely. Oh, there are so many questions now. Now it's popping up. Here's a good one as well. Art Patron, how you are measuring and data analyzing how many individuals are reading the online or the physical book of your collection guide? And also, is there an estimate of emerging and established collectors for the art estimate guide? For the art guide, or as well, or for the website as well.
Okay. There is honestly a lot of collections on our website that are not publicly accessible. So there's a lot of collectors who are very passionate and active, and I'm really I guess I'm trying to find more and more collectors like this. Of course, when you're working in my position, it's also a huge desire of mine to build up a collection, and I have been doing that in my own little way. So I'm really loving to support younger collectors. We also, I love this moment working with with Jorg in Spain, in Madrid. I find his last name very complex to say, but Jorg Hernandez. Sorry, Jorg. You'll know what I mean. But he has he's very young, in his early 30s, and has a huge collection of, like you, Oliver, like contemporary African art.
I think we follow each other. Yes, I know.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So we did an online exhibition also with him last year, and he wrote back giving feedback that the young emerging artists in his collection were so excited and so happy to be given the public platform alongside huge collections like the Broad and that are really private institutions. So you will, of course, find a lot of huge collections, but a lot of smaller collectors as well. We don't want to take a hierarchy. As I said, our approach is quality over quantity.
Yes. And how do you define the quality? What is the key for that's because most of the artists say, okay, why is my work not quality and why this work is quality? So how do you define this?
So just to be very clear, when we're looking at a new collection, or when I'm approaching the possibility of presenting a new collection online, I request high resolution images, and they can be artwork reproductions, or they can be installation shots, or kind of location shots. But we're looking at those images where really
do they need to have a gallery representation, for example, or is it as well possible that these collections, all the artists have, for example, no gallery representation, are not yet up to the art market? Is this as well kind of criteria, or?
It really depends on the collector. I mean, that would actually be pretty. If there's a collector out there that only has art is not represented by a gallery, then you can reach out to me. But so far I have not I've not come across any collections that have that. But that's not a discriminating factor. But the criteria is really presenting or trying to create this insight from in a very diverse spectrum. And I'm thinking back to now Saloni Doshi and her collection in India. Probably she does not have a space for her collection, but she hosts a residency. So she has a private residency space. And she is giving platform to artists who may or may not have gallery representation.
Okay, wow, that's cool.
And that is a way of also building her own collection.
Because, for example, like I always use the similar quote, like as well, quantity for quality for my collection, because rather have less and very good quality rather than having thousands of work which are not talking so much. And I always kept, let's say, the people asking, well, how do you define the quality? So I did, for example, think about this a lot, and as well doing a YouTube video about it, about thinking about how to judge it with the golden ratio, which is like kind of the theoretical approach of how can you see a certain relationship between art. It was like defined like ratio between lines, proportion, perspectives, positioning of body or pointing colors or something like this. And of course the people were saying, yes, that's right from the theoretical point of view, that's the base and that's the layout. But what about the soul? What about the characteristics? Stuff like this. Because I always think like for the soul and for the characteristics and for the beauty, you still need to have the base right, the proportion, the positioning, and then the second step would be the characteristic, the soul. What do you think about this?
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of take a different approach on just a very personal level. I am interested by art that there's something that's triggered. It can be beautiful or ugly or a bit confusing, but I think in terms of relevance, art, the role of, I think art will shift and artists will take will take a responsibility to reflect what's happening. Because to remain relevant, I don't know if things can remain purely aesthetic anymore. So our assessment with collections, I mean, it's also really having that conversation with the collector and trying to figure out how they use their collection, how they activate, how they I don't know if they have a relationship with artists, or finding something that creates a new insight point and knowledge around collecting, because this is what we're trying to build up, this collective pool of knowledge. And our platform by now is really the largest contemporary guide to collecting.
Yes, and since you all know all these collections, do you think there's what drives the collector? Is it most of them rather interested into, let's say, the investment point of view, to the curatorial point of view, to the love for art? What are your experiences about this?
Again, it's very diverse, but collectors that might not have had access to the art world before and are able to collect art they start and then suddenly completely fall in love with it and then kind of make it their full-time job. Like Alain Savet in Brussels. And it's what was the first part of the question again? Sorry.
The question was like, are there more? Let's say the collections are more interested into the investment point of view or the curatorial point of view, or they're just doing it for the love of the piece of art.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally diverse. Some collections as well host residencies, or they invite an external curator to curate a show using their collection, which I think is really great because, as Alain Savet says, with each new hang of his collection every year, it's like it's gifted to him newly because that curator brings in their research and their topic, and it's like he's given a rebirth to the collection. So that's really great. Other private collections curate things themselves, and it's a very personal insight into seeing things exactly how they want to show it and their reflections. In terms of an investment, of course, there are some collectors flipping artworks. There are some collectors. I mean, I think at some point, collectors shouldn't, or we shouldn't be afraid or have bad feelings towards selling works. I think every collector has probably done that at some point. And if you have done that once or twice to refuel your collection and to be able to expand and support more artists, then I think that's a great thing. But of course, there are collectors that do have that investment focus. And you can tell because if collections are just buying the big names, the kind of like successful equation artists, then it's quite obvious.
Because as well, like for this topic, it's always this discussion of flipping, keeping, not selling, allowed, blah blah blah. I think it's somehow a little bit too harsh, because of course the sums of art in general are, let's say, high. It's not something for you buy for 300-400 euros, which is, let's say, you can easily take. These are certain amounts. So even if you say, okay, you're flipping it, means like you're selling it after 1 or 2 or 3 years. But I think there should be not any restrictions that a collector who spent a certain amount of money is, let's say, not allowed to sell. If he, let's say, loses somehow the feeling, the passion for the art, thinks, okay, there's a certain price on auction, and why not selling it and supporting, let's say, 10 more other artists with the result of this auction. I think it's always a little bit of a tricky theme, which is targeting and putting somehow the gun on the pistol and the gun on the heart of the collectors. You're not allowed to sell, and if you want to sell, please first go to the gallery and we will try to manage it for you. Don't put it on auction. I think it's always a little bit. It gives a bad feeling for the collector, you know, because if he somehow doesn't like the painting anymore, why not selling it? You know, that's even a big question. Sometimes.
I think you have to look at the overall approach of that collector.
Yeah.
And that's where you can see the authenticity or see the activities of that collector. You have to look at the overall approach.
Yes.
And not just like single cases of selling his work. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Great. Okay.
Yeah. How do you feel about selling? How do you feel about this topic?
I think selling is. I think it's a legal thing. I buy something. Even when I buy a car or something like this, who's saying like I can't sell my car after 5 years, you know, and suddenly with art you're somehow restricted. And to not sell it, and then you have like these, let's say, these documents. Okay, you please first contact the gallery. I can understand this for artists to preserve the market, to somehow back them up. Okay, nothing is going to happen. Even someone will put them on auction, that they don't fail. But I think it should not be criticized too much that collectors selling art, because selling and buying is keeping, let's say, the market on the run. If no one will sell, and only keep, then it's somehow the storage of the collectors will rise and blah 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 blah, and nothing will go into the flow. It's a market, it's getting into a flow. I can understand the curatorial point of view, keeping something for a long time, supporting the artist. I totally agree. That's the task for a collector too. But you should not somehow force them not to sell, or call them flippers if they want to sell it, and rather sell it for a good price and then put their money back into the collection. It's not that they will suddenly stop. Okay, now I sold all my stuff and I will stop collecting. Probably they will start something new. They will start supporting maybe a different collection point of view, like going more international, or focusing on German art, or just focusing on American art. I think it's not, should be not limited, that our collectors are forced to sell.
I think, for me, it's at the heart of it is the question of authenticity. And
yes,
I mean, there's huge problems with inflated prices in the art world, and I'm not sure what the solution is for that.
Yeah.
But I think when collectors really are, I guess, giving a platform to their artists and not just accumulating, then there is an importance to collecting.
Yes. Cool. Great. Okay, there are so many comments now.
Yeah.
I want to, since the Instagram is closing after 60 minutes, I would like you to, can you give, from your experience seeing all these collections, some advices from your point of view for people who wants to start their own collection?
Yeah, sure. I can, I guess, give some points from my point of view. There's a lot of galleries that, or even public-private institutions that have like the museum shop or something. Not that it's like you're buying these like souvenirs, but they might do a special edition with an artist that they've had in an exhibition. And I think that's a really great way to be able to own something produced by an artist. For example, with me, there's a Berlin art-based artist who I love, and prices of those artworks are not something that I can afford, but there's going to be a special edition series done, and from those works, the price is going to be around 300. So I like to keep my eye out for those kind of interventions happening. Tips for collecting: go around to project spaces and artist-run spaces and literally just ask what the prices are of artworks. You don't need to be buying art from the big galleries to be collecting. And just keep your eye out for young galleries opening. It's fine, I think, as well, to start by collecting editions or posters, or because that's at least starting something, and from there you can continue to build, and as your own knowledge increases, or your own kind of confidence or desire, then things can happen from there.
Perfect, great. And how can we again access like Independent Collectors website? Can we contact you? How can we reach out when we are a collector in the community? How to reach out to you and present their stuff?
Yeah, so I can also just show you our website on the computer. Maybe went. Oh no, here it is. This is a film still from one of our films on the Vimeo. It's an amazing work from Rebecca Russo's collection. This is called Two 50-year-old white men having emotions by Ivan Agote. Sorry, I'm just logging in, but I can literally show you our platform. Oh gosh, sorry. Okay, so this is I had up the Peachman Foundation that I was showing you earlier, talking about earlier. But this is how our platform looks. You have the About section here, and then if you just scroll down here, you can email me.
Perfect.
That will go directly to me. There's our team. And you can also, sometimes people reach out on Instagram. We have, Facebook as well. And our newsletter, we're giving weekly updates. So there's a lot of ways that you can get in touch with us. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, everyone out there, please go to the Independent Collectors website, subscribe as well to their Instagram channel, and we will put this talk. Thank you so much for this talk. I will create a YouTube video out of it, and it will be soon available for rechecking. And thank you so much for this interview. Thank you so much for the information and for the input. And hope everyone can stay safe and keep an eye on it. Someone's asking, could I post a link to the Vimeo video? Yes, I think it's even our Instagram bio. If not, I will, after this chat, I will put the link as the bio on our Instagram. Okay. I can do that for sure. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, then everyone have a great Sunday evening. Enjoy your time. And thank you so much for this interview. Thank you so much. Great. Enjoy it, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.